You got to get off that street. Can you tell I love Grace Potter? Boom, boom, boom. Okay, I'm going to talk about perspective. I talked about it earlier in a video. I was saying how we, I was kind of sharing my own story with homelessness and talking about some of the challenges with that, and said, until you've been there, you really don't know what it's like. And sometimes, the fact that I was, making over 200,000 before I went homeless, it was like, now I see the other side, because I think statistically most people don't make over $200,000. So I've seen that bandwidth. And I also realize that I'm talking to people who have never experienced either perspective. And so until you've been there, you just don't know. And that's why I joke. I said, women, try explaining to a man what an episiotomy is. He's like, what the fuck's a episiotomy? What the fuck is that? Well, women kind of get that because women get that. So let me talk to you about another perspective, because that's what I really want to address today. That's kind of the biggest theme that I'm hearing in my spirit is how do we speak in honesty when there's so many different perspectives? And, like, for example, one of the things we like to always debate on Facebook is who's a Republican and who's a Democrat, and we all have our sides. And then somebody comes in and says, the real problem? This guy comes in and he says, the real issue is not if somebody's a Republican or Democrat. The real issue is if they are corrupt. And the real enemy is corruption. So think about that. Next time you see a political rant, ask yourself, well, the real issue is not Republican or Democrat. I mean, who is my brother? The real issue is corruption. And if we focus on that, then that would scare the fuck out of politicians, because when a whole bunch of Americans get together and we talk about corruption and we're tired of it, give me like a lot, for example, like Hillary Clinton. I mean, she was the most advocated, funded person for the big banks, who pushed us to the brink of a country of utter collapse. And you go, well, why would you vote for that person? Well, because we're playing gender identity politics. Because if we can get people to identify with the politics of their identity, then we could be fucking corrupt and nobody gives a fuck. Because we got a whole bunch of women that are pro-feminist, and they're not even talking about corruption. They're talking about defending an identity. Oh, that's identity politics, the real issue. Okay, so how do we do it? Well, first of all, we have to paint the picture. We have to show the perspective. Well, here's a little trick. Here's a trick. Now, I'm from Oklahoma. Proud Oklahoma. In fact, I brag on Oklahoma. And normally, I didn't say Norman, I'm usually this guy. In fact, that is me. Jonathan Fibonacci, bitches again. And I'm talking about how Indians need to be taken care of. And of course, nobody gives a fuck about that in Oklahoma. But I do. I mean, deep down, I think everybody's either an Indian or a cowboy or an Indian. So here we go. How do you build the right perspective? Well, let's talk about it. One of the ways to know whether your state is full of shit, or if you live in a good town or a bad town, let's just kind of use this as a, kind of an elementary school lesson, is follow your hometown's newspaper on Facebook and every day write down the headlines. And you'll notice the climate of your city or town by the headlines you write down. Like, for example, Oklahoma, as much as I fucking love that city, as much as I am like always going to be a little bit of crimson boomer, I'm also going to look at it and say, yeah, as a city and as a state, it's very corrupt. It's a very corrupt state. And I'm from Oklahoma, and I can show you that. Like, for example, let's look at the Daily Oklahoman's front page. And let me show you what really happens. In fact, you can see I've had to stop liking them because it's so depressing. All their news is about somebody, it's budget overrun. I'm like, well, then legalize plants. They talk about Just let you decide for yourself. Okay, now here's some good news. Here's some good news. Sports. But if you'll notice, outside of sports, what does the Daily Oklahoman report on? Directly from their news, okay? So for example, this is what you hear about all the time in Oklahoma, okay? It just has different faces. And of course, it's always, we want to promote that. Man held and presumed killing of ex-re, okay. We want to make sure that we assume that it's a guy because, that's the way. And then you see this, they're always talking about, this is what Oklahoma reports over and over and over. And see, if I were the editor of the Daily Oklahoman, I would talk about education. I would talk about where we rank educationally. And if I was Gaylord of Oklahoma, I would redo the first page where I talk about where Oklahoma ranks in education, in technical skills, and technical jobs, and I would compare it to San Francisco. And then see, every day that I did that, if I were Mr. Jonathan Fibonacci Gaylord of Oklahoma, if I talked about how bad Oklahoma sucks, people in Oklahoma would think I hated it. But no, I love Oklahoma. It's some of the best people in the fucking nation. We have 4 seasons. There's so many cool things about Oklahoma, but it is a corrupt government. Now, let me show you another city. Again, you can always determine the truth of where you live by following the newspaper on Facebook and just be conscious, bring yourself into consciousness and go, I wonder what made the news here. Now here's Durango, Oklahoma. Durango Herald. It's where I live. It's one of the best places in the world. This is what Durango, Colorado talks about. Nature. And look at Colorado's economy. Look at the way Colorado does it. Look at the way Colorado did the 10th Amendment. Look at how they decided they were going to legalize plants. Look at the impact of that. Look at what's happened to crime. See, we have to learn how to have honest conversations. And that's really difficult because everybody likes their own perspective. I mean, do you think that the governor of Oklahoma is going to share this video? No. Why? Because I'm calling Oklahoma a corrupt state, because it is. But I also say it's the best, and we have to take our state back. We have to take Native American care, and we have to start using words like we have a modern-day Holocaust in Oklahoma. Nobody talks about the existing Holocaust that's happened. I mean, 6 million, how many Jews does it take for something to get called a Holocaust? Well, how about 6 million? How many indigenous Native Americans have died? I bet you more than 6 million. Let's talk about the hashtag MRA movement. How many men have to go homeless before we call that a Holocaust? Let's go with 6 million. Again, we all like our own perspective. So let's learn how to have honest conversations. And since we're on Facebook all day long, let's have those honest conversations. All right, Fallin, where does Oklahoma rank educationally? Where does Oklahoma rank relative to other states and other cities? Why are you even thinking about leaving your post when you need to fix your own fucking state? All right, there I'm getting mad. I'm dropping the F-bomb. You know what they say about men. No, tell me. I just got to know. No, it's all about perspective. It's all about perspective. And part of being an adult, in adulting, is learning how to allow another perspective to come into your reality. And that's what I want to talk about. Because there's never going to be really any change or growth until we change our perspectives and we learn how to have honest conversations. We start looking at our states from education, like, wow, look at what we're doing educationally. Let's look at what San Francisco's doing. I read a statistic once that if you're from a town in Alabama, the infant mortality in Alabama is like 10 times higher than Marin County in California, which is San Francisco. So think of that. We have the expertise and the intellect and the ability to make neonatal care amazing. But there's still places in Alabama that if you just happen to catch that lottery card, boom. Let's have that conversation from cradle to grave. You guys be good. Remember, Jesus said, "Who is my brother?" And maybe that's the most offensive thing I can say. Start talking about Jesus on YouTube. Who is my brother? This Christmas, who is my brother? Who is my sister? The Good Samaritan. Remember that day right after 9/11? Remember that? That glorious day when we got hit in the nose so fucking hard that we didn't even know who a Republican and Democrat was. We just wanted to make sure that everybody was okay. Remember that? Who is my brother? Let's have that conversation. It doesn't say who is my church member, who's in my political party. It says who's my brother. Again, we need to start using simple terms. Brother, sister, neighbor. Be willing and able and learn how to have honest conversations.